Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our new channel. Here we are going to be talking about history and international studies and world affairs explained. I am going to be taking you through the around history all over the world and current affairs as it is happening at the moment. Now, without wasting much time, let me take us straight into the topic I'm going to be discussing about today. Are we entering into World War III? The US-Israel versus Iran war, which has entered day 17. Now, the question is, what if the world is already sliding toward a global war and we just haven't realized it yet? 17 days ago, as we all know, a dramatic military campaign began when the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran. And the operation targeted military bases, nuclear facilities, and strategic infrastructure across the country. Since then, the Middle East has been engulfed in escalating violence, missile attacks, drone strikes, cyber warfare, and threats to the world's most critical oil routes. So the question many people are asking today is simple but terrifying: is are we witnessing the beginning of World War III? In this video, I'm going to break down what has happened during the first 17 days of the war, why it started, who might join the conflict, and whether it could truly become a global war. Now, let's talk about how the war started. The current conflict began on February 28, 2026, when Israel launched a large-scale strike against Iran in an operation widely reported as a coordinated campaign with the United States. The attacks targeted key Iranian military installations and nuclear facilities. The operation was framed by Israel leaders as a preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear program and missile capabilities. You know, for years, tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States had been building, and major disputes included Iran's nuclear program, ballistic missile development, Iranian support for regional militias, Israeli fears of an existential threat. When negotiations between Washington and Tehran collapsed earlier in 2026, the region moved closer to an open war. Then the strikes began. All of a sudden, explosions were reported in multiple Iranian cities, including Tehran. Soon after, Iran responded with missile and drone attacks on Israeli cities and American military bases across the region. Within hours, the conflict had expanded beyond a simple bilateral confrontation. What has happened in the first 17 days of the war? 17 days into the war, the conflict has already become one of the most intense military confrontations in the Middle East in decades. Thousands of strikes have been launched. Israel claims it has carried out over 4,700 attacks targeting Iranian military infrastructure. Meanwhile, Iran has retaliated with repeated missile barrages against Israel and attacks against US assets across the region. Several key developments have dramatically escalated the conflict. Number one, which is missile strikes on Israel. Iranian missile strikes have hit multiple Israeli cities. Some strikes have bypassed air defenses, causing casualties and damage to civilian areas. These attacks represent one of the largest direct military confrontations between Iran and Israel in modern history. Secondly, is the expansion across the Middle East. The war is no longer limited to Iran and Israel, as we can see. Iran-aligned groups across the region have also become involved. In Lebanon, Hezbollah has launched rockets toward Israel, prompting Israeli counterstrikes. This raises the possibility of a multi-frontal regional war. Number three is that strikes on critical infrastructure. One of the most dramatic moments of the war came when the United States launched massive airstrikes on Karj Island, Iran's main oil export hub. More than 90 Iranian military targets were destroyed during the raid. Karj Island is incredibly important because it handles up to 90% of Iran's oil exports. Any sustained damage to this facility could equally devastate Iran's economy and shake global energy markets. Number four, attacks were spreading across the Gulf. The conflict has already begun affecting neighboring countries. A drone strike recently caused a major fire at Dubai International Airport, temporarily suspending flights and spreading alarm across the region, the Gulf region. Iran has also threatened shipping routes and commercial infrastructure across the Persian Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz, perhaps the most dangerous development is the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. About 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow waterway. Iran has attempted to disrupt shipping there, sending global oil prices soaring above $100 per barrel. If this shipping lane is blocked for long, the global economy could face a massive energy shock. Now, let's talk about the hidden frontier, cyber war. Modern wars weren't only fought with missiles and tanks. You have to be aware of this. They are also fought in cyberspace. In the early days of the war, cyber operations reportedly disrupted Iranian communication systems and military networks before airstrikes began. Hackers and cyber units linked to Iran have also attempted retaliatory strikes. This digital battlefield could affect banks, energy infrastructure, transportation networks, and cyber war has the potential to spread far beyond the Middle East. Why the world is worried? Why are we all worried? So, why are analysts warning about the possibility of a global war? Because this conflict has the potential to pull in major world powers. Several countries have strong interest in the region. Russia maintains close ties with Iran. China relies heavily on Middle Eastern oil. NATO allies are closely aligned with the United States and Israel. If any of these powers become directly involved, the conflict could escalate dramatically. Another concern here is proxy warfare. Iran has networks of allied groups across the Middle East, from Lebanon to Iraq and Yemen. If these groups enter the war in full force, the conflict could, spread across multiple countries simultaneously. At that point, it could no longer be just a regional conflict. It could become something much larger. Why? That's going to show that people are scared that it might become World War III. Now, the question now is this: is this World War III? Despite the alarming headlines, most experts say we are not yet in a world war. World wars involve multiple global powers fighting directly against each other across multiple continents. Right now, the fighting is still concentrated in the Middle East. However, the situation is extremely volatile. If any of the following events occur, the conflict could escalate dramatically with direct involvement of Russia or China, a major attack on US forces, closure of the Strait of Hormuz, or nuclear escalation. In geopolitics, wars often expand not because leaders want them to, but because event spirals, out of control. History showed this clearly. World War One started with a single regional crisis, within which it became a global catastrophe. Now, in conclusion, 17 days into the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran, the Middle East is facing one of its most dangerous moments in decades. Missiles are flying, oil routes are threatened, and regional alliances are being tested. For now, the conflict remains regional, but the stakes are global. The stakes are global. The real question is not only how this war will end, but whether the world can stop it from spreading further. Because history teaches us something important. Sometimes the wars that change the world begin with events that seem at first very far away. I hope you got that. Let me repeat it again. Sometimes the wars that change the world begin with events that seem at first far away. Let's think about this. Thank you so much. My name is Joe Agafe, and see you soon. Thank you.